Just last week, a Democratic candidate for president suggested religious institutions be stripped of their tax-exempt status should they fail to support same-sex marriage. This week, several of his fellow Democrats rejected that proposal. But in recent years, more and more individuals, corporations, and groups with sincerely held religious beliefs are coming under fire for taking positions contrary to moving social mores and orthodoxy. This has led many to believe that there's a war against religious freedom being waged in the United States. Joining me now to discuss is Vice President and Senior Counsel at the Becket Fund and author of the new book, Free to Believe, The Battle Over Religious Liberty. Welcome, Luke Goodrich, to the program. Luke, thank you for being here. I want to start with this before getting to your incredible book. I just mentioned the recent case of a presidential candidate calling for the end of tax-exempt status for religious institutions who do not support same-sex marriage. Here is Beto O'Rourke at the LGBT town hall last week. This is CNN's town hall. Watch.
There can be no reward, no benefit, no tax break for anyone or any institution, any organization in America that denies the full human rights and the full civil rights of every single one of us. And so as president, we're going to make that a priority, and we are going to stop those who are infringing upon the human rights of our fellow Americans.
Luke, your reaction to what Mr. O'Rourke seems to be proposing there, and is this attitude toward religion on the rise in the work that you do defending religious liberty?
Absolutely. Beto's comments are really a frontal assault on religious freedom, but for anybody who's been paying attention, they're really par for the course. A lot of progressives have been trying to liken traditional religious beliefs to a form of bigotry, comparing them oftentimes to racism, and then seeking to use all the powers of the federal government to stamp out those beliefs. So his comments are deeply concerning, but they're also not actually that new.
Luke, Attorney General Bill Barr made headlines this week after speaking on secularism at the University of Notre Dame. I want to play some of his comments and get your reaction. Watch.
Secularists and their allies have marshaled all the forces of mass communication, popular culture, the entertainment industry, and academia in an unremitting assault on religion and traditional values. These instruments are used not only to affirmatively promote secular orthodoxy, but also to drown out and silence opposing voices and to attack viciously and hold up to ridicule any dissidents.
Luke, your reaction to that, it almost sounds like he's talking about a culture war.
Yeah, I think Attorney General Barr really hit the nail on the head, and our culture has shifted dramatically in the last 25 and even 5 years to where traditional religious beliefs that were once broadly accepted throughout our culture are now viewed as a threat to modern culture. And you see progressives increasingly trying to stamp those religious beliefs out. So I think it's very important that Attorney General Barr is calling this out, and the reaction on the left shows that he was really over the target here.
Now, Luke, I want people to understand you really are the foremost expert in this area. You defended the Hobby Lobby, the Green family in the Hobby Lobby case, the Little Sisters of the Poor. You've been on the leading edge of defending religious schools who are feeling their rights being infringed upon. And Barr called out these attacks on religion in schools particularly, government interfering in the teaching of passing faith along to kids. Here's what he said.
Ground zero for these attacks on religion are the schools. And to me, this is the most serious challenge to religious liberty today. For anyone who has a religious faith, by far the most important part of exercising that faith is teaching that religion to your children. The passing on of the faith. There is no greater gift we can give our children and no greater expression of love. And for the government to interfere in that process is a monstrous invasion of religious liberty.
Luke, are you seeing more cases like this where schools you're representing are facing greater threats from government intrusion?
Absolutely. I'm representing 3 schools right now in the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, and those schools are Catholic. They teach Catholic values to children, and they had 3 educators in those schools enter same-sex marriages in clear violation of their own employment contracts and in violation of Catholic teaching. And yet those teachers are now suing the Catholic schools, trying to soak them for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars in damages. And these sorts of threats are multiplying across the country. So that's why it's critical to stand up for the rights of all religious organizations, especially religious schools, to teach in accordance with their religious values.
Going back to that equality town hall that CNN held earlier in the week, Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro both issued, Cory Booker as well, they all issued almost threats to those who don't adhere to a particular organization, Human Rights Campaign vision of marriage, love, what a family should constitute, and that they would penalize religious believers should they deviate from that. Now, there's been some back off in the ensuing days. Elizabeth Warren and others have said, no, that's not really what we meant. People can believe what they want to believe. But they all, everyone on that stage, every Democratic candidate, are supporters of the Equality Act, which was passed by Congress in May. Tell me what the Equality Act would mean practically in the lives of Americans.
Yeah, the Equality Act is an aggressive attempt to advance gay rights across all areas of human life: employment, housing, public accommodations, and it includes no exemptions whatsoever for religious organizations or religious liberty. And so this conflict between the advance of gay rights and religious liberty is really one of the biggest religious freedom issues today. And the real question at stake, Americans are deeply divided on questions of sex and religion. And the question is the government going to pick one side of the debate on human sexuality and then crush and punish everyone who dissents? Or is the government going to find a way to respect both sides of this debate and allow everyone to live together in peace?
Can you respect both sides of this debate? Or is there a clash of rights here? I mean, I had an attorney this week I had a conversation with, and he said basically what people like you, Luke, are doing, you want to codify discrimination into the code and not allow these people to love who they want to love and marry who they want to marry. What would you say to that?
Yeah, the religious organizations that I'm representing are not trying to stop anyone from marrying. I mean, right now, I'm helping represent Catholic Social Services in Philadelphia. And for over 100 years, Catholic Social Services has been recruiting families to provide loving homes for foster children. But the city of Philadelphia recently decided to shut down Catholic Social Services solely because it doesn't place children with same-sex couples. But the fact of the matter is, no same-sex couple has ever come to Catholic Social Services and asked for placement, and there are over a dozen other adoption agencies in Philadelphia that do precisely that work for same-sex couples. So the question is simply, will the government live and let live? Will it let Catholic organizations like this, that have been doing this work since long before the city of Philadelphia even got involved, will it let them continue doing that work and continue providing loving homes for needy families?
I want to talk about the Little Sisters of the Poor for a moment. You've been representing them. They're back in court, which I find unbelievable. I mean, we're talking about a, 2016 Obama-era rule, HHS rule, which compelled all employers to provide contraceptives and abortifacients to their employees. Now, the nuns got they wanted repeated victories in the courts. You had the Trump administration come to power. They changed the rule in question. Why are you still in court?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I ask myself the same question just about every day. But the problem is you have several attorney generals in blue states that simply won't leave the Little Sisters alone. And so they've sued the Trump administration, arguing that the religious exemption that the Trump administration adopted is somehow unlawful and unconstitutional. So we are back in court again on behalf of the Little Sisters of the Poor, making the same argument that the government does not need to use nuns to give out contraception and abortion-causing drugs. And we've appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I feel very confident that we are going to win this case again. And once and for all, the Little Sisters of the Poor are going to be allowed to get back doing what they do best, caring for the elderly poor.
You know, Luke, I was on Fox News this week, and I pointed this out, that it shows you the long arm of bureaucracy, that even when you win, even when rules are changed, the person at the citizen is still subjected to the heavy boot of bureaucracy. It doesn't go away, particularly in this area of religious liberty. It sometimes takes an awful long time for the gears of justice to grind in the direction of justice.
That's absolutely right, and we've seen that historically as well. I go into this at length in my book, but the fact of the matter is religious freedom in this country was not won without cost. It was won by people of faith who were sticking to their conscience, even in the face of tremendous government oppression, just like the Little Sisters of the Poor. And they stuck to their conscience, and they ultimately prevailed. And so that's what we're doing. We're just coming alongside. That's the joy of my job, is I get to come alongside people of faith like the Little Sisters, and simply take a stand for them. And at the end of the day, we are going to win.
Luke Goodrich's book, Free to Believe, The Battle Over Religious Liberty in America, is available Tuesday, October 22nd at bookstores everywhere and online. Luke, thanks for being with us. We're going to have more with you in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.